When Everett Kane bought that abandoned farmhouse for $15,000, his last $15,000, he thought he was buying a second chance, a place to rebuild, a foundation for his 5-year-old daughter after they'd lost everything. But when he came back 6 weeks later, ready to start their new life, he found smoke rising from the chimney and 2 strangers living inside the home that was supposed to save them. What happened next would change all 4 of their lives forever. But first, you have to decide whether to call the police or take a leap of faith that defies all logic. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The gravel crunched under the tires as Everett turned down the long driveway. Dusk was settling over the Oregon countryside, painting everything in shades of purple and gold. He'd been driving for 5 hours, and every muscle in his body ached. But none of that mattered now. This was it. Their new beginning. "Is that it, Daddy?" Kira's voice was bright with excitement from the passenger seat. "Is that our house?" Everett smiled despite his exhaustion. "That's it, sweetheart. That's—" He stopped mid-sentence. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Smoke. There was smoke rising from the chimney. His heart hammered against his ribs as he pulled the truck to a stop about 20 feet from the house. The farmhouse looked exactly as he'd remembered from his quick inspection 6 weeks ago. Weathered white paint, sagging porch, overgrown weeds. But someone had been here. Someone was inside.
"Daddy?" Kira's voice was uncertain now. "Why did we stop?" "Stay in the truck, Kira." Everett's voice came out sharper than he intended. He softened it. "Just for a minute, okay? Let me check something. But stay here." He squeezed her hand, then opened the door and stepped out. The evening air was cold against his face. He could smell wood smoke now, definitely coming from inside. His mind raced through possibilities. Squatters, vandals, maybe some kids using it as a party spot. He approached the front door slowly, his construction worker's instincts on high alert. The door was slightly ajar. Everett pushed it open, and his breath caught. The main room had been swept clean. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace he'd assumed didn't work. 2 young women stood frozen, their eyes wide with terror. They looked identical. Same slight build, same long blonde hair pulled back in ponytails, same dirt-smudged faces. For a moment, nobody moved. Then one of them stepped forward, her hands raised as if in surrender. Please don't call the police. We'll leave right now. We just needed somewhere." "Who are you?" Everett's voice was harder than he felt. His mind was spinning. These weren't vandals. They looked terrified. The other twin moved protectively in front of her sister. "We're sorry. We thought this place was abandoned. We've only been here for a few weeks. We haven't damaged anything, I swear to you. We'll pack up and go. Just please, don't call the cops." Everett looked around the room more carefully. The floor had been swept. The broken windows were covered with cardboard and plastic, sealed tight against the cold. Someone had cleared out years of debris. The fireplace wasn't just working, it was clean, like they'd actually taken time to make it safe. "How did you even know about this house?" he asked. The first twin, the one who'd spoken, wrapped her arms around herself. She looked young, maybe early 20s. "We used to live in Millbrook, about 10 miles from here. Everyone knew this place had been empty for years. We didn't think anyone would. We didn't know someone bought it." "Daddy?" All 3 of them turned. Kira stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her brown curls wild around her face. She looked at the 2 women with open curiosity rather than fear. "Kiara, I told you to stay in the truck." Everett moved toward her instinctively. "I know, but it's really cold and I saw the smoke and I thought maybe we could have a fire too." She tilted her head, studying the twins. "Are these ladies going to live with us?" The question hung in the air like smoke. "No, sweetheart, we're leaving," one of the twins said quickly. "We're really sorry. We'll be gone in 10 minutes. But Kira had already walked further into the room, her small hand reaching out to touch the fire's warmth. "It's nice in here. Way better than the truck." She looked up at her father. "Can they show us how they made the fire work? You said the fireplace was broken." Everett felt something shift inside his chest. He looked at his daughter, This little girl who'd lost her mother 8 months ago, who'd slept in a motel room for weeks, who'd watched their entire life get sold piece by piece, standing there with such simple, uncomplicated kindness. Then he looked at the two young women, really looked at them. They were terrified, not just of him, but of something deeper. He recognized it because he'd seen it in his own mirror for months, the kind of fear that comes from having nowhere to go and no one to turn to. "Sit down," he said quietly. The twins exchanged glances. "Please," Everett added, "just sit. Let's figure this out."
20 minutes later, they were all sitting around the fire. Kira had curled up against Everett's side, fighting sleep but determined to stay awake for whatever happened next. The twins sat across from them, perched on the edge of an old crate, like they might need to run at any moment. "I'm Autumn," one of them said softly. "This is my sister, Willow. We're twins, obviously." "Obviously," Kira murmured sleepily, and despite everything, Autumn smiled. "I'm Everett. This is Kira." He paused. "Tell me how you ended up here." The twins looked at each other in that way twins do, some wordless communication passing between them. Then Willow spoke. "We grew up in Millbrook, just the three of us. Me, Autumn, and our mom. Our dad left when we were babies, so Mom raised us alone. She worked 2 jobs most of our lives." Willow's voice was steady, but her hands were clasped tight in her lap. "We both got scholarships to Oregon State, full rides. Agricultural science for Autumn, business for me. Mom was so proud." Autumn picked up the thread. "We graduated last June. Everything was perfect. We had job offers, plans. Then in August, Mom had an accident at work, a machine malfunction at the processing plant where she worked nights. Something about a safety guard that wasn't maintained properly." Her voice dropped. "She survived, but her spine was damaged. She couldn't work anymore." Everett felt Kira's weight grow heavier against him as she drifted toward sleep. He shifted her gently, listening. "We came home to take care of her," Willow continued. "Turned down the job offers. We thought it would be temporary, that she'd heal, that the company's insurance would cover it." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We were so naive. The company fought the claim, blamed her for the accident, said she violated safety protocol. Meanwhile, Mom's medical bills kept piling up. We worked 3 jobs between us. I was at the feed store, helping with harvest work. Willow waitressed and did bookkeeping for local businesses. But it wasn't enough." Willow's voice cracked. "Mom's condition got worse in October. Infection, complications. She spent a week in the ICU. She died October 23rd. The fire crackled in the silence that followed. "We're sorry," Everett said quietly. The words felt inadequate. Autumn wiped her eyes quickly. "The medical debt was over $80,000. The collectors came after everything. Our mom's house, our car, anything with value. We tried to fight it, but we didn't understand the legal system. We didn't have money for lawyers. By December, we had nothing left. We were sleeping in our car. Then the car broke down, and we couldn't afford to fix it. Someone at the diner mentioned this farmhouse, said it had been abandoned for years. We thought, maybe just for a few weeks, until we could save enough for first and last month rent somewhere. But everywhere requires an address, references, proof of employment. Hard to get any of that when you're homeless. We've been applying for jobs, but it's a cycle we can't break out of." Everett looked at them, these 2 young women who'd done everything right, who'd earned scholarships and graduated college and tried to care for their mother, only to have everything ripped away through no fault of their own. He knew that story. He was living a version of it.
"How old are you?" he asked. 24, they said in unison. Kira had fallen fully asleep now, her breathing soft and even. Everett looked down at his daughter's peaceful face, then back at the twins. He thought about the motel room where they'd spent those awful weeks, about the shame of foreclosure, about the morning he'd sold Melissa's jewelry, the last physical piece of her he had just to buy groceries, about the desperate clawing feeling of having nowhere to turn and no one who understood. These girls had lost their mother. He'd lost his wife. They'd lost their home. So had he. They were trying to rebuild from nothing. So was he. "How long have you been here?" he asked. 3 weeks, Autumn said. We've been really careful. We haven't damaged anything. We clean every day. We only use the fireplace at night when nobody would see the smoke. Or we thought nobody would see it anyway. The cardboard on the windows, that your work? Willow nodded. We found some plastic sheeting in the barn. It keeps the wind out. And you cleaned the fireplace? Made it safe to use? Autumn did that. She's good with her hands. She checked the flue, cleared out all the debris, made sure it wasn't going to catch fire or smoke us out. Everett looked at Autumn with new interest. You know construction? She shook her head. Not really, but I'm good at figuring things out. I helped build sets for our high school theater program, did some farm repair work during college. I learned fast. Something was taking shape in Everett's mind. It was probably crazy. It definitely wasn't practical, but neither was buying an abandoned farmhouse with your last $15,000.
This place needs a lot of work, he said slowly. The roof leaks in places. The plumbing is shot. Half the electrical needs to be rewired. The floors need sanding and refinishing. It's going to take months to make it actually livable. The twins nodded, confused about where he was going. I'm a contractor, or I was. I owned a restoration company in Seattle. Lost it 8 months ago, along with everything else. That's why I bought this place. It was all I could afford. A chance to start over with Kira. He took a breath. Here's what I'm thinking. I need help fixing this place up. I can't pay much, barely anything at first. But if you help me with the work, you can stay. We'll figure out sleeping arrangements, get the utilities turned on properly, make it work. You learn construction skills, I get labor. Kira gets... He glanced down at his daughter. She gets people around, besides just me. The silence stretched. Are you serious? Willow's voice was barely a whisper. I'm serious, but there are rules. We're honest with each other, always. We all pull our weight. And we figure this out together as we go. Deal? Autumn's eyes filled with tears. Why would you do this? You don't know us. Everett thought about that question, about the phone call from the hospital, about signing the foreclosure papers, about the motel manager's pitying look when he'd paid for another week with crumpled bills. Because 6 months ago, I would have done anything for someone to give me a chance. So, I'm giving you one. Willow stood up abruptly and turned away, her shoulders shaking. Autumn moved to her sister's side, and Everett heard Willow's quiet sobs. Thank you, Autumn said, her own voice thick with emotion. Thank you. Everett nodded, adjusting Kira in his arms. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start figuring out what this place needs. It's going to be a lot of work. We're not afraid of work, Autumn said firmly. Good. Neither am I. The first week was chaos. Everett had forgotten what it was like to manage a project with no budget and makeshift everything. They started with the essentials, getting the electricity restored, which required calling in favors from his old contacts and doing most of the rewiring himself. Autumn followed him everywhere, asking questions, handing him tools, learning. Why are you using that gauge wire instead of the thinner one? She'd ask. Because this circuit is going to carry more load. You always want to over-engineer when it comes to electrical. Safety first. Makes sense. She'd file the information away, then hand him the next tool before he asked for it. The girl was a natural. Willow focused on the practical side, making lists of materials they needed, calculating costs, finding deals at salvage yards and hardware stores. She got a job at Miller's Cafe in town, waitressing 4 days a week. Autumn picked up shifts at Brennan's Hardware, which gave them an employee discount on supplies. Every dollar went toward the house. Kira appointed herself project supervisor. She'd sit on an overturned bucket, swinging her legs, offering commentary. Daddy, that board looks crooked. It's supposed to be like that, sweetheart. It's for drainage. Oh, okay, but it still looks crooked. The twins were patient with her endless questions, her need for attention, her little girl chaos. Willow would braid Kira's wild curls in the mornings. Autumn taught her the names of tools and let her help with safe tasks like sorting screws. One evening, about 2 weeks in, Everett came downstairs to find Willow making dinner while Kira sat at the counter chattering about her day. And then Autumn let me use the real hammer, the small one, not the toy one, and I hammered 3 whole nails. Kira's eyes were bright with pride. 3 whole nails, Willow repeated seriously. That's impressive. You'll be a builder like your dad in no time.
That's what Autumn said, Kira beamed. Then, more quietly, Willow, do you think Mummy would be proud of me? Everett froze in the doorway. They hadn't talked much about Melissa. Every time he tried, the words got stuck in his throat. But Willow didn't hesitate. She set down her wooden spoon and turned to face Kira fully. I think your mommy would be so proud of you, Willow said gently. You've been so brave through all the hard changes, and you're learning so much. I bet she'd love to see you hammering nails and helping build your new home. Kira nodded slowly. I miss her. I know, sweetheart. I miss my mom too. She died too, right? She did, in October. Kira considered this. Does it get easier? Willow's eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. It gets different. You don't miss them less, but it hurts a little less over time, and you find ways to keep them with you. Memories, things they taught you, ways they loved you. Those things stay. Everett's throat tightened. He'd been so focused on survival, on keeping Kira fed and sheltered and physically safe, that he hadn't known how to help her grieve. But Willow understood in a way he couldn't. Later that night, after Kira was asleep in the small bedroom they'd made livable first, Everett found Willow on the porch. Thank you, he said, for what you said to Kira earlier. Willow looked surprised. You heard that? I did. I had been failing her with that stuff, not knowing what to say, how to help her process it. You haven't been failing her, Willow said firmly. You've been keeping her alive and safe and loved through an impossible situation. That's not failing. She misses her mom. I don't know how to be both parents. You don't have to be both parents. You just have to be her dad, and you're doing that perfectly.
Everett sat down on the porch steps. The night was cold and clear, stars scattered across the sky like spilled salt. Tell me about your mom, if you want to. So Willow did. She told him about Sandra Hayes, who'd raised twins alone and made them feel like they had everything, even when they had nothing. Who'd worked herself to exhaustion so her daughters could go to college. Who'd been so proud when they graduated that she cried through the entire ceremony. She was tough, Willow said, but also soft, you know? She'd work a 12-hour shift and still come home and make us elaborate birthday cakes from scratch. She taught us that working hard didn't mean you couldn't be kind. She sounds incredible. She was. I keep thinking she'd be horrified that we ended up homeless, like we'd let her down. You didn't let her down, Everett said. You tried to save her. You gave up your futures to take care of her. That's love, not failure. They sat in a comfortable silence for a while. Then Willow asked, What was your wife like? Everett felt the familiar tightness in his chest. Melissa. She was the organized one, the planner. I'd get excited about a project and jump in, and she'd be the one making sure we'd actually thought it through. He smiled despite the ache. She was funny. Terrible jokes, but she'd laugh at them herself so hard you couldn't help but laugh too. And she loved Kira so much it terrified her sometimes. Terrified her? She'd say, I never knew I could love something this much. What if something happens to her? How would I survive? I'd tell her nothing was going to happen, that we'd keep Kira safe. His voice dropped. Turns out I should have been worrying about keeping Melissa safe. You couldn't have prevented an aneurysm. I know. Logically, I know that. But there's a part of me that feels like I should have seen it coming, should have done something. That's grief talking, not logic, Willow said softly. It makes us believe we had more control than we did.
Everett looked at her, really looked at her. In the moonlight, with her guard down, she looked younger than 24, but her eyes held understanding beyond her years. How'd she get so wise? He asked. Willow laughed. Trauma and therapy. Mom made us see a counselor after Dad left. Best thing she ever did for us, honestly. Taught us how to process stuff instead of just burying it. Maybe I should try that. Maybe you should. By March, the farmhouse was starting to look like an actual home.
They'd gotten the plumbing working, which meant hot showers, a luxury that made all of them emotional the first time they used one. The kitchen was functional, with salvaged cabinets Autumn had refurnished and countertops they'd pieced together from discount supplies. 3 bedrooms upstairs were livable now. Everett and Kira in one, Autumn in another, Willow in the third. The work was hard, but there was joy in it. They'd put on music while they worked, and sometimes Autumn would sing along. Turns out she had a beautiful voice. Kira would dance while they painted walls or sanded floors, making them all laugh with her unself-conscious enthusiasm. Everett felt something shifting inside himself. Not forgetting Melissa, he'd never forget her, but making room for the present, for the sound of laughter in a house that had been silent for so long, for the satisfaction of building something with his hands again, for the unexpected family forming around their shared brokenness. One Saturday in late March, they decided to tackle the disaster that was the backyard. Years of neglect had turned it into a jungle of weeds and overgrown bushes. Autumn surveyed the chaos with her hands on her hips. "You know what this space needs? A garden." "A garden?" Everett raised an eyebrow. "We're barely keeping up with the house repairs." "I know, but hear me out. My degree is in agricultural science. I could design a vegetable garden, nothing fancy, just basics, tomatoes, lettuce, herbs. It would save us money on groceries, and gardening is therapeutic." She gave him a meaningful look. "We could all use more therapeutic." "Can we grow strawberries?" Kira asked hopefully. "I really like strawberries." "We can definitely grow strawberries," Autumn promised. So they spent the day clearing weeds and preparing beds. Autumn explained about soil composition and drainage while they worked. Willow took notes, always the organizer, planning out what they'd plant and when. Everett found himself watching them work. The way Autumn's face lit up when she talked about growing things, the way Willow made even manual labor feel structured and achievable, the way Kyra absorbed everything like a sponge. "Daddy, look!" Kira held up a worm. "Autumn says worms are good for gardens because they make the dirt better." "That's right," Everett confirmed. "Worms are helpful." "Everything's helpful if you put it in the right place," Autumn said. Then, catching Everett's eye, "I think people, too." That night, exhausted and dirt-covered, they ordered pizza, a rare splurge, and ate it sitting on the porch as the sun set. "You know what I just realized?" Willow said. 3 months ago, Autumn and I were sleeping in our car, terrified about where we'd end up. Now look at us. We have a home. We have work we're good at. We have—" She paused, emotional. "We have a family again." Autumn raised her pizza slice in a toast. "To second chances and abandoned farmhouses." "And to people who see strangers and offer help instead of judgment," Willow added, looking at Everett. Kira held up her juice box solemnly. "And to strawberries." They all laughed, and Everett felt something warm spread through his chest. Not happiness exactly, he wasn't sure he was ready for that word yet, but something close, something like hope. Spring rolled into summer, and with it came steady progress on multiple fronts. Everett's reputation in the construction world started to rebuild. He took on a small restoration project in town, a historic building that needed careful work. He brought Autumn with him, and she impressed the client so much they asked if she was available for other projects. "She's got an eye for it," the client told Everett, "and she's meticulous. You don't find that much anymore." By June, they had enough work lined up that Everett officially made Autumn his business partner. She cried when he told her. "You don't have to do this," she said. "You've already done so much for us." "I'm not doing it for you," Everett replied honestly. "I'm doing it because you're talented, and I'd be stupid not to recognize that. This is business. You've earned it." Willow's catering side hustle was growing too. It had started with her making extra food and selling it at the farmer's market. Then someone hired her to cater a small party. Then another. By July, she had regular clients and was seriously considering making it a full business. "I'd need a proper kitchen, though," she said one evening, reviewing her finances. "The farmhouse kitchen is great for us, but if I'm going to scale up, I need commercial space." "There's that empty storefront next to Miller's Cafe," Autumn suggested. "I saw a for lease sign last week." They started planning, calculating, dreaming. Kiera turned 6 in August, and they threw her a party in the backyard, now transformed by Autumn's garden into something magical.
kids from Kiera's kindergarten class came, and their parents stayed, charmed by the unconventional household and the obvious love that held it together. Everett stood at the edge of the yard, watching Kiera lead a game of tag, her laughter bright and unself-conscious. "She's thriving," Willow said quietly, appearing at his elbow. "She is, because of you and Autumn. The way you both just stepped into her life and loved her without hesitation. It wasn't hard to love her. She's incredible." "She is," Everett agreed. Then, before he could stop himself, "So are you." Willow turned to look at him, surprise and something else, something warmer in her eyes. Everett felt his face heat. "I just mean, you're good with her, and you've been good for both of us. I don't know how to thank you properly."
"You already did," Willow said softly. "You gave us a home when we had nothing. You can't outthank that, Everett." They stood there, the sounds of children playing and summer insects buzzing around them, and something unspoken hung in the air between them. Later that night, after all the guests had left and Kiera had crashed hard from sugar and excitement, Everett found Autumn sitting on the porch. "Need some company?" he asked. "Always." She patted the step beside her. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Autumn said, without preamble, "You should tell her." Everett's stomach dropped. "Tell who what?" "Willow, that you have feelings for her." Autumn smiled at his panicked expression. "Don't look so terrified. I'm not mad about it. I'm not. Please, I'm her twin. I notice everything. And for what it's worth, she feels the same way." "She does?" The hope in his voice was embarrassing. "She does, but she's too scared to say anything because she doesn't want to mess this up. What we have here, this household, this family, it means everything to her, to both of us. She'd rather swallow her feelings than risk losing this." "What if acting on it does mess things up?" Autumn turned to look at him directly. "What if it makes things better? Everett, you gave us our lives back. You didn't have to do that. You chose to when you could have easily called the cops that first night. You saw two desperate people and decided to help instead of punish. That says everything about who you are." "I was desperate too. I recognized it." "Exactly. You understood what we needed because you needed the same thing. And we've built something real here, something good. Don't you think you deserve to have something good for yourself, too?" Everett thought about Melissa, about the guilt he still carried, about whether it was too soon, or if there even was a right time for these things.
"I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. "That's fair. But maybe ask yourself, will you ever feel completely ready? Or is there always going to be some reason to wait?" Autumn stood up, stretched. "Just think about it. And for what it's worth, Melissa sounds like she was amazing, but I don't think amazing people want the people they loved to be alone forever." She went inside, leaving Everett with his thoughts. 2 days later, Everett found Willow in the kitchen late at night. She was recipe testing, surrounded by ingredients and notes. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Too many ideas bouncing around." She gestured at the chaos. "I'm trying to perfect this herb focaccia for a client. Want to be my taste tester?" "Always." She cut him a piece of bread still warm from the oven. It was incredible. Crispy on the outside, fluffy inside, flavored with rosemary and sea salt. "This is amazing," Everett said honestly. "You think?" Willow looked pleased. "I've been working on it for weeks." "It's perfect. Your clients are lucky." They fell into the easy conversation that had become natural between them, talking about the business plans, Kiera's upcoming school year, a project Everett was bidding on. Then Willow said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." Do you think you could ever... She stopped, frustrated with herself. "Never mind, it's not my business." "Willow." Everett set down the bread. His heart was pounding, but Autumn's words echoed in his head. "What were you going to ask?"
She took a breath. "Do you think you could ever be open to having someone in your life again? In a romantic way, I mean. Or is that something that feels impossible after losing Melissa?" The question hung between them. Everett could have deflected, could have given a safe, vague answer, but looking at Willow, this woman who'd been vulnerable with him from the start,
who'd helped his daughter grieve, who'd become essential to his daily life, he chose honesty instead. 6 months ago, I would have said impossible, he said carefully. I couldn't imagine feeling anything but grief. But lately, he met her eyes, lately I've realized that grief doesn't mean you stop living, and maybe Melissa would want me to keep living, really living, not just surviving. She sounds like she was a wonderful person. She was, but she's gone, and I'm still here, and so is Kira. We deserve to move forward. That doesn't mean forgetting, it means making room for new things alongside the memories. Willow nodded slowly. When my mom died, someone told me that the people we love don't want us to stay frozen in our grief. They want us to take all the love they gave us and use it to build new lives. I didn't believe it at first, but I think it's true. I think so too. The kitchen was quiet except for the old clock ticking on the wall. Then Willow said, very softly, I have feelings for you, Everett. I have for a while, but I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid it would ruin everything. This household, this family we've built, it's too important to risk. Everett's heart felt too big for his chest. What if it doesn't ruin it? What if it makes it better? You really think that's possible? Instead of answering with words, Everett reached across the counter and took her hand. Her fingers were dusted with flour, warm from working. I think you're one of the best people I've ever met. I think you walked into my life. Literally, you were already here. At the exact moment I needed someone who understood what loss felt like. I think Kira adores you. I think you're building something incredible with your business. And I think I'd be an idiot not to see what we could be together. Willow's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared. Me too. But maybe we can be scared together? Take it slow, see what happens, but at least be honest about what we're feeling? She squeezed her hand. I'd like that. A lot. They stayed like that for a long moment, hands clasped over a counter covered in flour and recipe notes, in a kitchen in a farmhouse neither of them had planned to call home. So, Willow said eventually, a smile breaking through. Want to help me finish this focaccia? I have 3 more variations to try. Everett laughed. I can't think of anything I'd rather do. The rest of the summer and into fall felt like a different life from the one Everett had been living a year ago. His relationship with Willow developed slowly, carefully. They went on actual dates, dinner in town, a movie, a hike in the state park. They held hands on the porch after Kira went to bed. They talked about their fears and hopes, their pasts and potential futures. Kira noticed, of course, nothing got past her. Are you and Willow boyfriend and girlfriend now? She asked one morning at breakfast, casual as discussing the weather. Everett nearly choked on his coffee. We care about each other very much. Is that okay with you? Kira considered this seriously. Does it mean she's staying forever? Would you want her to stay forever? Yeah. She makes really good pancakes, and she helps me with my hair, and she doesn't get mad when I ask too many questions. Kira took a bite of cereal. Plus, she makes you smile more. You didn't smile much before. Out of the mouth of children, Everett thought. Then, yes, sweetheart. If she wants to stay forever, she can. Good, Kira said, satisfied. Can I have more orange juice? By October, exactly 1 year after Willow and Autumn's mother had died, the business was thriving enough that they started looking at real houses in Millbrook. The farmhouse had served its purpose, but winter was coming, and the heating situation was marginal at best. They found a place in town, nothing fancy but winterized with proper insulation and 4 bedrooms. It had a big kitchen for Willow's catering, a garage for Everett's tools, and a backyard for Autumn's garden projects. Are you sure about this? Autumn asked as they toured the house. Leaving the farmhouse? We're not leaving it. We're moving forward from it. There's a difference. They moved in November, and somehow the transition felt natural. This new house was warmer, more practical, but it carried the same sense of family they'd built in the farmhouse. Autumn met someone, Jake, a teacher at Kira's school. He was patient and kind and laughed at Autumn's terrible puns. The first time he came to dinner, Everett watched Autumn's face light up and thought, good.
She deserves this. Kira started first grade and flourished. She'd tell everyone about my dad and my Autumn and my Willow with such confidence, such certainty, that no one questioned the unconventional arrangement. On December 20th, exactly a year after Everett had bought the farmhouse, they drove out to see it. The grass had grown wild again. The windows were still covered with the cardboard and plastic from that first night, but it stood solid, waiting. Should we sell it? Willow asked from the passenger seat. Everett thought about the question, about the terrified young women he had found inside, about the decision to help instead of punish, about everything that had grown from that single choice. Not yet, he said. Maybe someone else will need it someday. Someone like we were, desperate, broke, trying to rebuild. Let it be there for them. That's beautiful, Autumn said from the back seat, where she sat next to Kira. Daddy, Kira's voice was thoughtful. That's where we became a family, right? In that house? Everett met Willow's eyes, saw his own emotions reflected there. Gratitude, wonder, love. Yeah, sweetheart, that's exactly where we became a family. Even though it was an accident? Even though you didn't know Autumn and Willow would be there? Especially because of that, Everett said. Sometimes the best things in life aren't planned. Sometimes you just have to walk through the door and see who's waiting on the other side. In January 2025, Everett and Willow got married in a small ceremony at the town hall. Autumn was the maid of honor, Kira was the flower girl and took her job very seriously, scattering petals with intense concentration that made everyone laugh. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real, built on shared trauma and hard work and the choice to keep showing up for each other every single day. Autumn and Jake got engaged in March. They talked about staying in Millbrook, about building something together the way her sister had. The business continued to grow. Kane and Hayes Restoration had a reputation now. Quality work, fair prices, attention to detail. Willow's catering operation, Wild Herb Kitchen, had a waiting list of clients. They were building something real, something lasting. One evening in late March, almost exactly 2 years after that first night, Everett found himself on the porch of their proper house in town. Willow sat beside him, her hand in his. Through the window, they could see Autumn and Jake playing a board game with Kira, everyone laughing at something. You ever think about how different things could have been? Willow asked quietly. If you'd called the police that night? If you'd told us to leave? Sometimes, Everett admitted, but I try not to. What's the point? This is where we are. This is what we built. We built something pretty amazing. We did. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from truly knowing someone. Then Willow said, "Thank you for seeing us when you could have just seen trespassers. Thank you for being brave enough to still be there when I arrived, for not running before I pulled up. Where would we have run to?" Exactly. We all needed each other, even if we didn't know it yet. Inside, Kira's laughter rang out, bright and joyful. She was 7 now, tall and confident, with her mother's curiosity and her father's determination. She had Autumn teaching her carpentry and Willow teaching her to cook. She had a father who'd walked through fire and come out still capable of love. She had a family she didn't question, because love, to her, was just what you did for the people who mattered. Have you ever experienced a moment that changed everything? A decision that seemed small at the time, but ended up reshaping your entire life? Sometimes the people we're meant to find aren't the ones we go looking for. They're the ones already waiting in the places we're brave enough to call home. If this story touched you, if you believe in second chances and the families we build from broken pieces, leave a comment below. Tell me about a time someone saw you when you needed it most, or when you chose compassion over judgment. And if you're still watching, thank you. Subscribe for more stories about the unexpected ways we find each other and the courage it takes to rebuild. Because sometimes
The best homes aren't the ones we planned for. They're the ones we discover when we're brave enough to walk through the door.